Byron has 420 pennies and hopes to collect 7 new pennies every week. Express all answers to the nearest tenth. Part A. What is the slope of this linear model? Now, when you're thinking about slope and then part B, which is the y-intercept, these are two very distinct pieces, right? The slope is your constant change. What is happening over and over and over, and it's the same every week, every day, every month, some time period that this thing just keeps happening. And that y-intercept is something that is static. It happens one time, one and done. Y-intercept, slope, over and over and over. So when I look at this, right, I have two values here. Byron has 420 pennies, period. He wants to collect 7 pennies every week. So a week goes by, 7 pennies. A week goes by, 7 pennies. A week goes by, 7 pennies. This is the constant change, right? Every week we have 7 new pennies coming in. Because that's our constant change, our slope is 7. And sometimes we talk about slope as a fraction. So if you want that to be a fraction, right, you chuck it over 1. Now in part B, what's the y-intercept? Well, the y-intercept is what's constant. It happens one time. And what happens one time? He has 420 pennies, right? That's what he starts with. The y-intercept can also be talked about as our starting point. But you only start one time in a spot. So our starting point is 420 pennies. And now that I have a slope and a y-intercept, I can write my linear model, right? Y equals mx plus b, or y equals slope times x plus the y-intercept. So if we have the y equals slope times x plus the y-intercept, we can fill in our values. Slope of 7 times x plus the y-intercept of 420. So this is our linear model. So remember that x represents number of weeks that go by, and y equals the total number of pennies. So when we look at letter D, how many pennies will Byron have after 20 weeks? Well, our formula is y equals 7x plus 420. And 20 weeks, that means x equals 20. Because remember, it's 7 pennies per week. That's why x is the number of weeks. So I plug it in. Y equals 7 times 20 weeks plus 420. And now it's an order of operations problem, right? So we multiply first. So y equals 140 plus 420. And that means after 20 weeks, Byron will have 560 pennies. And yes, you should label, right? We always want to label so we know exactly what we're talking about. Letter E. How many weeks before Byron has 840 pennies? Okay, so again, y equals 7x plus 420. Well, now you're given number of pennies, which we know is y. So y equals 840, and we're going to have to work backwards to find how many weeks. So 840 equals 7x plus 420. Now, the equal sign, right, breaks the equation into 2 equal parts. And your goal is to get the x by itself. So if you kind of think of cover up the x and what's exactly touching it, that's the last thing you're going to play with. Meaning, I need to get rid of this plus 420 first. Well, how do you get rid of 420? Well, it's positive, right? So we subtract. Because if you think about it, 420 minus 420 is 0. That makes that piece cancel out. I'm just left with 7x. And on the left side, because right, I've got to do the same thing each side. We've got to keep this equation balanced. And 840 minus 420 is 420. So I now have the equation 420 equals 7x. And again, you got to do the same thing to each side. Well, I now need to get rid of this 7. And a 7 in front of an x is like multiplication. So to undo multiplication, I'm going to divide by 7. Because 7 over 7 is 1. And 1x equals 60. So that means after 60 weeks, Byron will have 840 pennies.